Dragonflies and forest warriors escorting a lotus boat. Today is the day when the mother of the forest chooses her successor. Her name is Terra and she is the queen of the forest, revered by all. Everywhere she goes, lotus flowers bloom for her. Today the queen will choose a flower bud as a token to pass on to the next queen. The snail and the slug have already chosen the largest bud, and the queen thinks that big doesn't always mean good, so she chooses a small, unassuming bud. The queen slowly lifted the bud, preparing to send her psychic energy to the pod, when General Rooney, who was in charge of the queen's security, noticed the leaves nearby were decaying. He turns and shoots a decisive arrow. Other forest warriors prepared for battle. A corrupted minion disguised as bark was killed in seconds. In a flash, countless small monsters emerge from the bark. They are the forest-destroying rotting minions. The forest warriors descend from the sky, forming themselves for the kill. General Rooney tells the queen to get in her boat and leave. At that moment more rotting minions jumped from the trees. They destroy the queen's ship, hidden in the water. The corrupted soldiers, one by one, the pods were pulled into the water. Soon the queen is trapped on a lotus leaf. The demon soldiers have surrounded her. General Rooney has also been pushed into the water by the corrupted minions. The corrupted soldiers have mounted the lotus leaf. In the nick of time, Queen Terra leapt up. She bounced off the corrupted soldier in an instant. Then she reached out with her right hand and grabbed the vine and flew to the shore. She saw the rotting soldiers hunting Dandelion and her daughter. The queen waved her hand to control the trunk of the tree to save them. She used her mind to control the dead tree to stop the pursuers and to cover the leaves to get away. But as she ran, there was another obstacle. Then the little Dandelion flicked the rotting soldier away with a branch. She also saved the queen once. The queen puts the Dandelion up. She was about to go aside to distract her pursuers. And then General Rooney climbed out of the water. He blew his whistle, and a little bird ride came along. At this moment the queen ran to the high ground and leapt up. She was caught by General Rooney, who had arrived. Suddenly an arrow was fired. It was the rotting demon father and son who had caught up with him. General Rooney turned and struck back, and he hit the son of the rotting demon. But unfortunately for the queen, she was also hit. She fell from the sky with the pod in her arms. A young girl, was exploring the forest when she saw the scene. The queen fell slowly into the leaves. Annie was at a loss for words. The trees around her immediately wrapped around them. Today is the day that the mother of the forest chooses her heir. Her name is Terra and she is the queen of the forest, revered by all. She keeps the plants and trees alive. If she dies, the forest will wither and fade. She had just passed her spiritual power to a flower bud when she was assassinated by rotting soldiers. The queen of the forest was struck by an arrow. She landed in front of the human girl Annie, and looked curiously at the little elf in front of her. The queen gave the pod to Annie. The spirit-filled pod instantly lifted Annie into the air. It stumbled and fell to the ground. By then, Annie had become the size of an elf. She looked at the wounded queen and wondered what to do. "Are you all right? Should I call an ambulance?" The queen said she was dying. She told him to bring the pod to the elder of the forest. Only he can decipher the pod's secret to find the next queen of the forest. That's when the forest warriors arrived. General Rooney blamed himself for the queen's death. Soon the queen was slowly fading away. By this time, the forest was slowly decaying. In order to transport the pods better, so the snail and the slug went with him. They were able to provide water for the buds. On the other hand, the rotting demon sought to avenge his son's death by searching for the pods and decaying the forest, turning the forest into a horrible rotting hell. General Rooney's son, Jack, decided to go along too. They arrived at the residence of the elder of the forest. The elder entertained them with his hospitality, and he deciphered the secret of the pod. He said that the pod blooms on the full moon. The spirit of the queen would float to the next queen of the forest, and so the elder released many firefly messengers. He told them to tell all the elves of the forest that the pod was safe, and when the elves saw it, they saw hope. Suddenly the ground began to tremble, and out of the ground came a mouse bigger than a cat. It was the rotten lord who had found the place. The snail and the snuffling worm vowed to defend the pod to the death. They said that the pod would wither if it wasn't nourished by them. When the rotten king heard this, "Then I'll take you both with me." And so the flower and the snail were taken away together. General Rooney tried to go after them, but the way was blocked. On the other hand, The rotten one took the pod. For tonight the pod will bloom, and when the pod blooms in the dark lands, it will become a dark demon flower. The rot will use its power to destroy the whole forest. The elders here said they had to get the pod back as soon as possible, so Annie took General Rooney and Jack to her home. It turned out that Annie's father was a scholar who explored the elves. He had a collection of rotten soldiers' equipment. At this point Annie climbed up on a bottle cap, but then she fell. There was a person on the cap of the bottle. She accidentally fell down. She stepped right on the pencil. Then she rolled under the table. Jack pulled her out. And then Annie saw her dad and shouted, but he couldn't hear her. And then the dog heard the sound. He came running to Annie. Dad saw the scene. He rushed to get his professional equipment on. Now he spotted the elf General Rooney. General Rooney grabbed an arrow and tried to shoot the dog, but Annie pushed it away. Then he shot Dad in the butt by mistake. They rushed to put on their rotten soldiers' gear and fled. They had to go to the rotten demon's lair to get the pod back. General Rooney lured away the masses of rotten soldiers. Annie and Jack soon found the snail and the slug and the pod, so they made their escape through the roof of the cave. When the rotten soldiers guarding the pod spotted them, they rushed after them. Then they were punched and kicked. Jack kicked the enemy out of the way with a scud. The rotting demon roared with rage at the sight of this. Countless rotting minions appeared. The rotting demon climbed up and was about to catch up with Annie. General Rooney goes up and slams her down. And then a million rotting minions swarmed over him and General Rooney was killed. And Jack and Annie rushed away on the bird. And Jack blamed themselves for not being able to save the general. Then they brought the pod back and gave it to the elder of the forest. The elder placed the pod on the altar. Then they waited for the moonlight to come. Suddenly the sky was filled with dark clouds. It turned out to be the rotting demon with its countless minions blocking the moonlight. All the forest warriors rushed forward and fought to the death against the dark forces. After much fighting, the forest warriors made a way through. The buds began to bloom under the moonlight. At that moment the rotting demon slowly approached. The attacks of the forest warriors had no effect on him. Just as he was about to take the pod, General Rooney appeared. He was not dead. He was going to fight the forces of darkness to the end, but with his wound, he was no match for the rot. The rotting demon raised his sword and tried to kill him. In the nick of time, Jack appeared. The two of them worked together to fight against the rot. And then the pod bloomed. The queen's powerful magic sealed the rot in a tree and turned it into a lump. The rotting army surrendered, and the queen's power left in the pod chose Dandelion to be the new queen of the forest. So Dandelion was the chosen one, and the forest slowly came back to life. The new queen turned in back to human size, back to the human world. For those who have watched the video and liked and followed it, the rotten devil will not harm them. He will also help those who watch the video and like and comment in the comments section to make a fortune.